This is where a fire is burning again here in the bosque. Here is that picture full screen. This is again on the west side of the Rio Grande. This is near Atrisco and Riverview, south of I-40. You can see these live pictures coming in from here. We've been seeing this smoke plume for at least about the last 30 minutes or so here. And what you can kind of notice is that it seems like there are clumps of smoke emerging from several different points along in this fire. There are homes right nearby. You can see that here in these live pictures again. And that looks like people in their backyard using hoses to presumably wet down some of the vegetation and brush that's right up next to their property. And you can see just, yeah, again, some of that smoke coming up from this recently started bosque fire happening right now in the Albuquerque metro area. This, again, is on the west side of the Rio Grande near Atrisco and Riverview. It is south of I-40. And these pictures are live, incoming right now from Sky News 13. We do have a ground crew on their way out there and hope to learn a few more details, but at least what we know is that AFR is indeed responding out there with its wildland fire unit. You can see that is a little bit of a closer picture right there, and some of the flames there on the ground. This is burning again right up to the river's edge, so it does look like crews are on the ground spraying this down here right now as we get a look at some of these live photos from Sky News 13 coming in right this very moment. The information that we have about this fire is pretty limited at this time. What we know is that according to how this was dispatched from the Albuquerque Fire Rescue, this is a fire that is, quote, approximately half acre, burning with 2 feet flame lengths in the bosque, rather. This is being classified as a what they call a significant wildland fire. But you can see crews are already on the ground dealing with that. This is right along the edge of the Rio Grande there, right where some of the homes on the west side of the river come into play in that Atrisco I-40 ILIF kind of neighborhood area there. So a good look at the images here from Sky News 13. We're going to leave you with these images as they play out, and if we learn a little bit more, we'll jump back in here and see if we can give you some more details as we learn it. But we'll leave you for now with these live pictures here from Sky News 13. Again, thanks for joining us here on KRQE.com. You're looking at live images right now from Sky News 13 as crews from Albuquerque Fire Rescue and their wildland firefighting division are looking at a bosque fire right now that has emerged in the area of I-40, Atrisco, and Riverview. You can see the homes right along the edge there. Our camera is able to capture some images of people in their backyards using hoses to spray down the area. A pretty dramatic scene here, especially when you consider just how the winds have been whipping here today and throughout this month of April so far. A lot of high wind type days throughout the state of New Mexico. So what we're seeing right here is a fire that has emerged in the bosque. We're not entirely sure at this point. Much more besides the initial dispatch, and the information was originally that it was burning about a half acre with 2-foot flames in the bosque, and this again being in the area of Atrisco, Riverview Drive, and that's just south of I-40, and it's on the west side of the Rio Grande. So you can see some of the wildland fire crews right down there in their yellow outfits there towards the bottom of your screen, obviously perched up in people's backyards and right along some of those property lines. This, again, has just emerged probably in about the last half hour here. But what we can see is, yeah, there's an example of people using hoses from their backyard to spray things down. Crews on the ground there. Obviously, you see some of the news station crews there. From what we can tell right here, there hasn't been much activity in terms of flames that we've seen come across, but there's clearly some burning that has been happening along the ground. Of course, one of the things you worry about once these high wind days happen is whether or not that fire can crawl up into a tree canopy, and if that is blowing out and over into other areas. And so far, what we've seen is that all of the smoke is kind of contained to the same area. And again, these are live images coming in here now from Sky News 13. Crews were on the ground as well, underneath kind of that tree canopy area, spraying things down. And again, yeah, a good example of somebody right there using a hose in their own backyard to try and wet the ground and keep things from springing up, because as we know, there was a lot of dry vegetation out there at this point. So these live images here you're seeing from Sky News 13, we've been up for about 15 or so minutes over the fire, but we have seen the smoke in the area for about the last half hour here. We do know, again, that this fire is about half an acre at least in size. That was what it was initially dispatched as. It likely has grown since then. They were reporting 2-foot flame lengths in the bosque. As for a cause, nothing out there yet. We haven't seen any other types of indication to show what may have occurred here and how this may have started. But there's a good example of some of the crews on the water here as well, patrolling the area and possibly looking out for any other hot spots or flames that maybe have emerged in this fire here. So again, some of the live pictures you are getting here from Sky News 13 flying over this bosque fire. We know these things get a lot of attention these days just because of A, how dry it's been, and B, what the winds have been like. I think people have looked towards what happened last week over in Ruidoso and seeing the bosque fire, or excuse me, seeing the wildfire that emerged in Ruidoso in the forest areas over there and destroying 207 homes at least, also leading to the death of 2 people in Ruidoso. And I think when you have a serious event like that, seeing something emerge on what is a windy day in the metro area, or not the windiest, but certainly some winds out there, and you worry what may happen in that case. And it looks like today crews have been on this operation pretty dang quickly. Again, from what we understand, this was dispatched as about a half-acre fire, 2-foot flame lengths in the bosque. These are some of the first crews that we've seen in an airboat patrolling around, presumably looking at some of the extra areas. You can see that kind of little island there, and I imagine that they're looking to see if there are any other hot spots. But this, again, reaching right over to the river's edge. We did see people a little bit earlier spraying down the vegetation and whatnot just from their own backyards, obviously, to try to help out with the situation, because it is liable to go quickly, especially during these windy days. We'll keep this live picture up here over Sky News 13. Again, a fire in the bosque in the area that is west of the river, of the Rio Grande, south of I-40 in the area of Atrisco and Riverview, right in that bosque area that kind of abuts next to where some of those properties have built along the edge and some of that natural wild bosque area. Thanks again for joining us here on KRQE.com. You're getting a live look at images from a bosque fire that is continuing to burn south of I-40 on the west side of the Rio Grande. This is near Atrisco and Riverview, and again, right next to a few homes. So far, what we have seen from our video feed from Sky News 13, and again, these pictures are incoming live here now, is that the fire has burned up right to the river's edge. They have had crews out there on a airboat, essentially going around seeing if there are any other hot spots along the edges or along some of the nearby areas and seeing what the fire is doing. From what we have seen, that this smoke plume has continued to kind of widen out, but it does not appear to be picking up a lot of strength, a lot of energy. It looks like it's been kind of putting out the same amount of smoke over about the last half hour as it has when we first started seeing this. But you can clearly see that there is a lot of ground cover along where this fire is happening that continues to be burnt by this continued wildfire that has happened here this afternoon. From what we know, it was originally dispatched as about a half-acre burning with 2-foot flames. The winds were gusting around 30 miles an hour when this fire was first dispatched, probably about an hour ago. About 3:20 or a little bit before that, is when we first heard about this fire. So, and again, yeah, you can see just some of what has actually burnt in there. Appear to be several trees right around along the river's edge, and smoke continues to come up in that area. We did see crews on the ground with hoses spraying down areas out there. There has not been, from what we can see from the air, a lot of activity with flames, but certainly a lot of smoke in the area. There are people in the backyards of those homes. You can kind of see those little dots of people along the top of that bluff right there that have been spraying down, using hoses from their backyard to help pump some water onto the area, which I assume is probably very dry at this point, much like a lot of New Mexico. We really haven't had any rain in the metro area in quite some time. I'd love to ask Grant Tosterud right now a little bit more about exactly how long it has been since we've had some precipitation in the area, but I'm thinking it was probably when it snowed last, might have been when that happened, and that was several weeks ago. But anyway, I digress. This is live images here from the Albuquerque overhead, the Albuquerque Bosque. This is south of I-40 near essentially Riverview and Atrisco, right on the west side of the Rio Grande. We're going to leave up these live pictures for as long as we can stay up overhead. Again, live pictures from Sky News 13. Thanks for being here. Looks like Sky News 13 is going to head back to home base after flying over that Bosque fire. I know we can still see some of the images here from our roof camera on top of the KRQE News 13 studios, so I do want to just swap over our picture here just a little bit so you can see that fire is still active. It is still burning there, again in the Albuquerque Bosque near Atrisco and Riverview, south of I-40. It has been burning for about an hour now, and we could see that, again, a lot of charred material, brush and whatnot right along up to the river's edge. It looked like at least one tree was blackened there by the fire. But yeah, you can see that crews, though, have responded. They are in the area. The winds are continuing to blow in the area, and we have seen that several people spraying down out of their backyards who live right along that bluff there. People spraying down water from their backyards down the hillside to where that fire is burning. So clearly a concern, but it's clear from what we can see there haven't been any structures lost at this point, and it looks like the fire is not moving toward those homes, but the wind is blowing in a direction that is pushing the fire. It looked like toward the riverbank possibly, but also it was not pushing up that hill you could see towards those homes. So that is what we can see, at least right now. We appreciate you joining us. This, again, are images here from our own KRQE News 13 roof cam. We are not looking at Sky News 13 footage anymore, but we're flying over that for quite some time there. We will have a full update, what we can learn a little bit more about how this fire has developed. As soon as we have it, we're going to leave this live image here up for just a little bit, but we do appreciate you joining us. And just to let you know, our helicopter is no longer flying over the area. We'll have more details as soon as we can get them. We'll bring them to you here on KRQE.com, and also stick around for our newscast here on News 13 at 5:30. And also, of course, our 4 o'clock news is playing out right now on Channel 13. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Thanks again for joining us. We're going to put in a live update here right now from AFR. This is one of our Albuquerque Fire Rescue spokespeople speaking here right now about this fire burning in the Bosque.
So that's something that happens on a larger scale in some of the national forests and the state forestry. But in our Bosque area, you'll never see a prescribed burn. So the question goes around to, was it man-made? Was it naturally started? I think it's safe to say that we weren't operating in a prescribed burn, and we didn't see any lightning strikes in the area. So we can assume that it was man-made, whether it's an accident or on purpose. we don't want to speculate at that point. Hopefully we'll be able to find out exactly how it started, but our main focus is to keep the community safe, and at this point we're making good progress.
May I ask, why aren't there prescribed burns?
That's a good question. I think our wildland coordinator could get further in depth into that, but I think the main idea is that it's just not safe. I can follow up with you on that as well.
You guys are working hard. Work progress stops. It's somewhat windy, but you guys have any fears that this thing could get worse before it gets better? Or are you pretty confident at this point that when you've halted, you've stopped for good?
At this point, we've made good progress on it, and I would think that in terms of containment, they've got a good handle on it. At this point, this year, this is our first real significant bosque fire that we've had. There was a small one a couple weeks ago, a little bit further south of Bridge, but in comparison to last year and even the year before that, we had already had several bosque fires to this size and even larger. So I think that the community is doing a lot better in terms of keeping each other safe, right? So we have ongoing bosque patrols that we've already started and continue to do on a daily basis. We always want to remind the community members that if you are in the bosque and you see something, to say something. If something doesn't look right or looks suspicious, please say something. Either call 911 or 242 cops. And our firefighters are prepared to be able to respond quickly and keep the community safe.
Is there any reason to believe that any people might be in harm's way down there? Any hikers or fishers?
That we don't know, and we'll get confirmation on that. We'll let you know in a further update. That's it for now. And go ahead, Foster.
I know it's very hard to get into bosque in some areas, and this one in particular, very steep for firefighters. What was kind of the first assessment, when they take on a fire like this?
Good question. So one of the difficult things with handling bosque fires is our ability to access them. There's a couple levee roads that are nearby. Our firefighters that work in and around the bosque are extremely familiar with how to access it, and today they were able to do that. So even though it's a steep hill behind us, they were able to quickly get on scene, access the fire, and get containment under control. That's it for now. We'll send out an update as soon as we have more.